I, 29, F, spent an entire week planning and cooking for Thanksgiving. Every morning started at 5, checking on the turkey, brining in our garage fridge. Every evening ended with flour in my hair from rolling out pie crusts. I made apple pie, pumpkin pie, and pecan pie, all from scratch. The green bean casserole had fresh beans I blanched myself. The stuffing recipe came from my grandmother's handwritten cookbook. 20 people were coming to our house, and I wanted everything to be perfect. But my mother in law, Brenda, showed up with her own completely separate Thanksgiving dinner. She told our family and friends that my food was probably unsafe to eat. She thought she had won that battle, but she had no idea she had just started a war. My husband, Mark, 31M, had been supportive through all the preparation. He helped me move furniture and set up extra tables we borrowed from neighbors. This was the first time we were hosting a major holiday for both sides of our family. 3 years of marriage, and I had never taken on something this big. Every other holiday had been at Brenda's house, where she reigned supreme in her kitchen. She would make comments about my store-bought contributions, always with that smile that never reached her eyes. This year was supposed to be different. This year, I was going to prove that I could handle being the hostess. I needed to show everyone, especially Brenda, that I belonged in this family as more than just Mark's wife. The doorbell rang at noon sharp. Brenda never arrived, early or late, always exactly on time to make an entrance. Mark went to answer while I pulled the turkey from the oven for its final basting. I heard the door open, then silence, then Mark's confused voice carrying down the hallway. When I walked into the living room, I saw why. Brenda wasn't carrying her usual wine bottle or flower arrangement. She had 2 large coolers at her feet and 3 casserole dishes balanced in her arms. Behind her, my father-in-law, Ted, was pulling more containers from their car. "Oh, Clara, you really went all out. How ambitious of you," Brenda said. Her eyes scanned the dining room table I had already set with our wedding china. "I just wanted to make sure there was something familiar for everyone to eat, just in case your experiments didn't turn out." My stomach dropped. I looked at Mark, waiting for him to say something. He just stood there, mouth slightly open, processing what was happening. I forced myself to smile. I asked what she had brought. Brenda launched into a detailed list. She had made a turkey, her special stuffing, mashed potatoes, gravy, green beans, sweet potato casserole, cranberry sauce, and 3 kinds of pie. It was an entire Thanksgiving meal, down to the dinner rolls. She had duplicated everything I had made, everything I had told her I was making during our phone calls over the past month. As more guests arrived, Brenda directed Ted to set up her food on the sideboard in the dining room. She created a completely separate buffet line. With each family member who walked through the door, she would guide them to her table first. She would point out each dish with pride. "This is my famous stuffing recipe that Mark has loved since he was 5, she said. "These are real mashed potatoes, not from a box," she added. "The turkey is organic and free-range, very important for safety," she emphasized. Each comment was a small cut, delivered with perfect timing. Mark finally pulled his mother aside near the kitchen. I could hear their voices from where I stood stirring gravy. "Mom, what is all this?" Mark said. "You're making Clara uncomfortable." "I am simply making sure our family has a nice holiday, Mark," Brenda replied. "This is too much for one person to handle, especially for someone so inexperienced. You should be thanking me for thinking ahead." Mark came back into the kitchen, his face red. He whispered that we should just let it go, that it wasn't worth the fight. He said people would eat both, and everything would be fine. I wanted to scream. Instead, I turned back to my gravy and kept stirring. The campaign started before dinner was even served. I watched from the kitchen as Brenda moved through our guests like a politician working a room. She cornered my Aunt Martha by the fireplace, speaking in hushed tones while glancing toward the kitchen. She pulled Mark's cousin Jennifer aside, one hand on her arm, leaning in close. With each conversation, I saw people's expressions change. They started looking at my food table with suspicion. When she got to Mark's grandmother, I was close enough to hear. "I just worry," Brenda said. "Clara doesn't always check expiration dates. Remember when she brought that potato salad to the 4th of July picnic? Thank goodness I noticed the mayonnaise had been left out. My food is a safer bet. I made everything fresh this morning. That potato salad incident she referenced never happened. It was a complete lie, told with such confidence that Mark's grandmother nodded along, concern creasing her forehead. I stood frozen, ladle in hand, watching my mother-in-law systematically destroy my reputation with surgical precision. When it was finally time to eat, I watched the disaster unfold in slow motion. Guest after guest walked past my beautifully arranged table, barely glancing at the dishes I'd spent days preparing. They loaded their plates from Brenda's selection. My turkey sat untouched, growing cold. The pies I'd woken up at 4 a.m. to bake were ignored. Even my own mother, trying to be polite, took only a small spoonful of my mashed potatoes before filling the rest of her plate with Brenda's food. The compliments flowed all evening, but none of them were for me. "Brenda, this stuffing is incredible," someone said. "You've outdone yourself with this turkey," said another. "Thank goodness you thought to bring back up," my father-in-law joked, not realizing how his words stung. Or maybe he did realize. With Brenda, I was learning that cruelty often ran in families. By the end of the night, I threw away pounds of food. An entire turkey, barely carved. Bowls of sides with only serving spoons having touched them. 3 whole pies. Each item I scraped into the garbage felt like throwing away a piece of my pride. Brenda helped with cleanup, tusking softly as she watched me toss everything. Such a shame about the waste," she said. "Next year, maybe just ask everyone to bring something. It's really too much for one person." After the last guest left, I stood in my kitchen, still wearing my apron, surrounded by empty serving dishes that had held Brenda's food. Mark found me there, and for the first time all day, I let him see how angry I was. Not sad, not defeated, but furious. "Your mother publicly declared that I was incompetent and possibly trying to poison our family, and you let her," I said. My voice was calm, which seemed to scare him more than if I had yelled. "This will not happen again." Mark's face changed as he finally understood. This wasn't about food or hosting duties. This was about respect. And his mother had shown me none while he stood by and watched. He apologized. Really apologized, not just the quick sorry he had given earlier. He promised that he would stand up to her, that he would be on my side completely from now on. I told him I would handle this myself, but I needed him to back whatever I decided to do. He agreed without asking questions, which was smart of him. Over the next few days, I researched Brenda's life with the dedication of a private investigator. I learned about her church activities, her book club, her gardening society. But the real goldmine was her position as the chair of her community's annual Christmas charity bake sale. For 15 years, she had run this event. For 15 years, she had won the top prize for her famous secret recipe carrot cake. This cake was her calling card, the thing that made her special in her social circle. And she guarded the recipe like a state secret, always declining to share it when asked, saying it had been in her family for generations. I created an anonymous food blog called Local Kitchen Love. I spent 2 weeks building credibility, posting simple recipes for cookies and soups. I joined local Facebook groups and shared these recipes, gaining a small but engaged following of people in our town. I was patient, methodical, waiting for the right moment. Mark's grandmother, Eleanor, was the key. She loved me despite Brenda's attempts to poison her against me. When I visited her for tea, I mentioned how I wanted to contribute to the bake sale, but didn't know what to make. Eleanor lit up. She said she had the perfect recipe, one that Brenda always made, but actually came from Eleanor's mother. She pulled out an old wooden recipe box and handed me a yellowed index card. Brenda's famous secret carrot cake, written in fading blue ink. 3 days before the sale, I published the recipe on my blog. The title was perfect. The easiest award-winning carrot cake. You won't believe how simple it is. In the post, I wrote about how some recipes are so wonderful they should be shared with everyone, not kept secret. I mentioned that this particular recipe had been passed around for generations and deserved to be enjoyed by all. I added a line at the end. A classic recipe so good, you'll wonder why anyone would ever try to keep it a secret. I paid $50 to promote the post on Facebook, targeting women over 50 in our zip code. The post exploded. It was shared over 200 times in 2 days. Comments poured in from people saying they couldn't wait to try it. Several mentioned they were making it for the upcoming charity bake sale. The day of the bake sale arrived cold and bright. Mark and I arrived separately. He went first to scout the situation while I waited in the car. He texted me that Brenda was there with her usual display, 3 perfect carrot cakes on vintage cake stands. I waited another 20 minutes, then walked in. The community center was packed with tables full of baked goods. But something was different at Brenda's table. She wasn't holding court like usual. Instead, she stood rigid behind her cakes, her face a mask of controlled panic. As I got closer, I saw why. The table next to hers had 2 carrot cakes that looked identical to hers. Across the room, another woman was cutting slices from the same cake. The judging table had at least 4 entries that were obviously the same recipe. Margaret, one of Brenda's committee members, walked up to her table. "Brenda, I'm so glad I found that recipe online. It's just like yours, but so much easier than I ever imagined. I always thought there must be some complicated secret to it," Margaret said. Brenda's forced smile looked painful. She muttered something about great minds thinking alike. But the damage was already spreading. People were tasting the different versions, comparing them openly. Someone mentioned that Jennifer's was actually better because she had added extra cinnamon, and another person said they preferred Margaret's cream cheese frosting. Brenda's cake, the one that had made her special for 15 years, was now just one of many. I walked up to Brenda's table with Mark beside me. I looked at her cakes, then smiled warmly. "That cake looks so familiar," I said. "I saw a recipe just like it going viral online recently. It's wonderful that everyone can enjoy it now." Brenda's face went through several expressions in rapid succession: confusion, realization, rage, and finally, a cold understanding. She knew exactly what I had done. She knew this wasn't a coincidence or bad luck. But she couldn't say anything. She couldn't accuse me without sounding crazy. She couldn't prove I was behind the blog. All she could do was stand there and watch her reputation crumble like day-old cake. "Such a shame about the waste," I added, echoing her words from Thanksgiving as I watched people pass by her table without stopping, having already gotten the same cake from other bakers. The aftermath was swift and satisfying. Brenda didn't win the bake sale for the first time in 15 years. The prize went to Margaret, whose version of the carrot cake had that extra cinnamon. Worse for Brenda, the committee members started questioning why she had kept such a simple recipe secret for so long. The mystique was gone. She was just another baker with a basic recipe anyone could make. She stepped down as chair of the bake sale the following week, claiming she wanted to give others a chance to lead. But everyone knew the truth. Her special status had evaporated the moment her secret became common knowledge. The woman who had built her identity on being the best baker with a secret recipe was exposed as ordinary. The family dynamics shifted completely after that. Brenda became quieter at family gatherings, no longer the authority on all things domestic. Mark and I started hosting holidays without interference. She would arrive with a single dish, as requested, and nothing more. She would sit at our table and eat our food without comment. The respect I had demanded was finally given, not out of love, but out of fear. She had learned that I could play her games and win. This past Thanksgiving, Brenda complimented my turkey. It was a small comment, barely audible, but I heard it. Mark heard it. Everyone heard it. The queen had been dethroned and a new order had been established. I had won the war she started, and the victory tasted better than any secret recipe carrot cake ever could. The best revenge isn't always served cold. Sometimes it's served at exactly 350 degrees, baked for 45 minutes, and shared with everyone except the person who tried to keep it secret. Brenda learned that when you try to humiliate someone at their own table, you might just find your own reputation on the menu. And when that happens, everyone gets a slice except you.